Hello, it is so very nice to be able to catch up with you guys. Just want to give you a few tips on trying to get through your thesis and dissertation, just to give you some information about what worked for me and how I was able to get through mine without much of a headache. Although I was at a more traditional university, I think you could still use some of these tips to get you through this, even in the climate and environment that you're working in currently. The first thing I want to let you know is that you're going to have to be your own project managers, and you're going to have to decide on the direction of your thesis or your dissertations. By the time you are close to graduating, you will know way more about that subject than your committee or your supervisor. And I was very fortunate that in my graduating year, some prior graduates had told me that they negotiated with their committees so they will let them graduate with the research that they had already done. I decided to take the same approach, and I was assertive during my committee meetings, and I'm glad I did. The tiny shift in my attitude saved me about 6 months in postgraduate school. My committee members, they didn't really agree on a lot of the strategies that I had went for, but my chair approved my dissertation once I stood up for myself and explained why I thought it would work and that it was sufficient for my doctoral dissertation. And the pushback mainly came from them not being aware of the medical industry at that level. They didn't understand why these things were being examined. As I, some of my variables included acupuncture and chiropractic medicine and integrative modalities like that. Not a lot of people know too much about that, so that kind of threw them off. You are not at the mercy of myself or your selected committee. As I work as your thesis supervisor for this semester, you're not at my mercy. I just make recommendations and suggestions. You can follow them or you cannot. And you can still submit your IRB or your proposal if you want to submit it in any form that you would like to. You should by now have enough experience to determine what's realistic, what you can do, and I'm sure you know how to negotiate the requirements. I want you to also reduce your thinking that you can multitask. I used to think that the secret to getting your dissertation done was to be as efficient as possible. I must multitask all the time by answering emails, doing things at work, doing house chores, writing my dissertation. This approach not only led to poor writing and failed attempts, but it exhausted me after literally just 1 hour. I felt so drained that I could not really focus on writing for the rest of the day. You can only focus on one thing at a time. When you do two tasks simultaneously, your brain switching back and forth between the two tasks, and you're probably not able to do either of them very well when you're trying to split your brain power. So you may have peers who pride themselves on thinking they can multitask, but after working with hundreds of students, I know that on the long run, it is always more efficient to focus on only one task at a time. There are a few occasions when you just can't avoid it, and multitasking is something you have to do, especially if you're a parent, things like that. You have obligations, you have to go to work. You wake up every morning with a finite amount of energy, and if you don't protect it, it'll be sapped up very quickly by like the disruptive coworkers or even just family drama. You don't have to be 100% of yourself and in control over your energy all of the time. So don't beat yourself up about that. However, if you manage the time you do have good control over strategically, you can channel your energy towards a task that will lead to more tangible progress on your dissertation. I remember to also make every click count. If I had to summarize in one sentence why I accomplished more in 6 months than during the previous 2 years, it would be that I made every click count. To keep my pain under control, I had to limit my time at the computer to 4 hours a day. I had to take a 5-minute break after every 15 minutes of typing. And with such a constraint and the looming graduation deadline, each minute on the computer had to contribute in some way to my progression. During every 5-minute break, I decided how to spend the 15 minutes that was coming up so I would make the greatest progress. Most of the time, it was just educated guessing, and sometimes I realized that I had wasted 2 hours analyzing data that I didn't have to include in my dissertation. Yet the intention of using every click at the computer towards progress on my dissertation made me realize how much time I had wasted previously on emails and writing, rewriting paragraphs, perfecting fonts, colors on PowerPoint slide presentations. Unless you have a severe medical condition, you don't have to be strict with your time at the computer, but you'll be amazed at how much you can accomplish if you dedicate a few hours a day to your dissertation when you make every click count. So when you are at your computer, you want to turn down your cell phone, you put it on mute, social media notifications, and all of those distractions. Okay, I know this may feel strange and hard, but it's well worth it. I still do it in my profession. When I'm working, I have my phone on mute and I check it every few minutes just to make sure, because I do have a daughter. So I check it just to make sure that there's no emergencies. However, there's no social media and no distractions. And after a while, you won't miss the constant beeps every time someone sends you a message. So just reduce that noise and that distraction in your way. I also want to tell you about reinventing the wheel. I had no idea what a dissertation was supposed to look like. I wasted months writing and rewriting paragraphs, second guessing myself, and taking a wild guess at what my supervisor and committee expected of me. After I returned from my break, I realized I didn't have time to take guesses anymore. And I decided to find out what worked in the past, not reinventing the wheel. I looked at doctoral dissertations from my department that had topics similar to mine, which were not many, and I modeled mine right after them. Actually, I took my doctoral supervisor, Dr. Pamela Wilson. The first thing she did when she signed on to be my chair was she sent me her dissertation to show me what worked for her. And I've passed that on to my students as well. Earlier on in my career, I was sending my dissertation to show them what worked for me. If you ever want to see my dissertation, I can show that to you as well. I use these manuscripts, I use them as guides for the approximate number of words and level of detail required in each section. Now, interestingly, my chair graduated from my school, so it was the same, and you're graduating from a different school, so the requirements will be different, but at least it'll give you an idea on what it should look like and what's considered a scholarly dissertation. And I want you to remember to take real breaks and lots of breaks. This may sound counterintuitive, but I created most of my content when I was away from my desk, when I was away from the computer. I had to take a 2-week break once, and it forced me to restructure my day and create a more efficient writing process. Then the 5-minute stretch breaks that I had to take every 15 minutes allowed me to get new insights and kind of debug the sections of my thesis that needed the most work. I also took an hour break in the middle of the day. I took 30 minutes to eat and socialize in the lunchroom and 30 minutes to walk around. I walked the campus where I was teaching and I was administrator at that time so much, and so many ideas would come. I would be running back to my office afraid that I would forget that idea. So I learned to walk with a pen and pad, and I would just stick it in my satchel and just walk around the campus with that. And when I thought of something interesting, I would jot it down. I sometimes wonder how long it would have taken me to finish if I had did these things before. I developed these ideologies because the conventional method, work, 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 led to very little progress for me. And I also have a family and I have a full-time job at the time. The constant sitting at the computer just was not realistic. I would never know for sure how my life would have been different if I had gone through this experience straight from my master's program without being a working non-traditional adult. But I do know that on the days when I follow these principles, I feel much better. I make more progress and I'm actually more enjoyable to be around. Working fewer hours, being healthier, making better progress all the time is pretty cool. And I think you would agree with me on that. So that's all I have in regards to self-care assistance for you right now. And these are things that help me. But if you have any practices that you also are incorporating right now to help you write, send me a note and I will try to make a video about that, especially if you're being progressive in your writing. Anyway, I'll see you in class. And this is Dr. Smith, and onward and upward.